Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Shrey Nagori, and I'm the Director of Supply Operations at Amber. We'll be getting started in just a minute, as you know, I still see some people joining us right now. Excuse me. But till that time, just looking back at semester one's performance, which I believe has been a positive experience for most of us. It's encouraging to witness the resilience in the Australian education sector. This also is a very promising sign for all of us in the student housing industry. For today's webinar, we'll be discussing key trends we have observed in the Australian market and sharing insights on what the future of this landscape might look like. It will be David, who is a VP at Amber, and Sarthak, who is a Senior Account Manager at Amber, leading today's webinar. I'll now pass it over to David, joining us bright and early from the UK at 5 in the morning, I believe. Yes. Over to you, David.
Thanks, Shrey. Yeah, hi, I'm David Seymour. I'm VP here at Amber, and before we get into the meat of the webinar that we're excited to deliver, I just wanted to just add a little bit of framing for you. And obviously, we are a truly global housing solutions company, and we have an obligation. We feel that we have an obligation to our partners in all of our destination countries and also our source countries as well. And those partnerships are with owner operators, housing management companies, higher education institutions and feeders in destination countries as well as source countries, and also investors associated to all of the above, and also in relation to our huge network of source country education agents, where we're sort of mapping out and looking at the landscape on a regular basis. And some of these obligations are to give support and data-backed insights to understand and to help those clients make good decisions. And there's either recommendations or considerations that we'll put out there on a regular basis. And this is where these webinars are becoming a regular source of good insight, and we want to make them as valuable as possible. And in light of that, I would like to kick off and just give a good understanding of the global view of student migration, and where that mobility is going, and if there's any diversification, and what we need to consider as a business, and what you guys can be considering for your businesses as the shaping is coming. Obviously, there's reliance on political landscape, the strength of the education industry within each of those destination countries as well, the appeal associated, and sort of look very much looking at sort of the decision making processes that the students go through and the factors that are affecting those decisions as well. Some are external, some are internal, and we try to unpick and give a good understanding of what could be happening and what is happening, and give a commentary associated to that. So if you bear with me, I'm going to try to go in and go into the actual deck, and then I will hopefully appear on the screen with the deck beside me, and then we can get into that. So if you bear with me. Okay, I think I've done it, although I seem to have lost my video. Hopefully you guys can see the screen. I'm getting a thumbs up virtually, so hopefully we'll be okay. Let's crack on then. So as I mentioned, let's look at the migration levels and the current number of international students that are residing and studying in some key or the biggest destination countries. And you can see the US, Canada, UK, Australia are the biggest by far in terms of accommodating international students. And when we look at those numbers and how they have grown over the years, if we look at back into say 2002, there was only 2.5 million international students residing and studying abroad. That is increased to nearly 7 million, or 7 million in 2023. The last poll was 2022 was 6.9 million. We know it's gone up since then. So it'll be above 7 million. And that goes to show how important and how the business of education and has really blossomed and is taken a really big stronghold, and a massive export to these destination countries, and the economy is very strong on the basis of that. And it's not just the numbers, it's a diversification that can change over time, and we've seen that over the last couple of years, even with that China was number one in UK and the US for years, and even just over the last 12 months that's been overtaken by India, and that's not just because there's a slight decline in China, and when we say a slight decline, it's only a very slight decline, and there's reasons for that which we'll go into, but India it has just boomed. And that's been partly because of the economy and the affordability of being able to study abroad, and also the job opportunities that are open to Indian students as well. And that goes to the emerging countries as well. We've got Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Nepal. All of these sort of countries are very much on the up. And as a business, we look at all of the source countries, and we're in. We represent over 160 different nationalities in those source countries, and we're keeping a very close eye on the migration levels and the appeal of the destination countries, and helping those decisions being made. And that's something that we'll come on to a little bit later. There's also a lot of factors that will play a big part in that. Interestingly, when we don't just look at the volumes, we look at the percentage of international students that are residing as well. And one of the interesting sort of pieces of data that we look at is, for example, the US has the biggest volume of international students, but it's one of the smallest amounts of percentage-wise. So it's only 6% of students that are in the US are international. And the flip of that is Australia, where you've got 31% of students are international. So that makes you think, or the requirement for housing is very important, to understand where those students will live, understanding the needs, wants, fears and desires of those students, and the well-being of those students, because they're coming from abroad into a totally new realm, and have lots of stresses and strains placed upon them. And so these are some of the factors that need to be catered for and understood by not only the institutions, but also the accommodation providers and management companies. And we play a part in helping educate that and those key areas for those students. So when we look at the migration, we're seeing the trends continue, and some emerging countries. And if we just dig into looking at the migration in the last 2 quarters in the US, we did see up until the last 2 quarters, we saw a decline year on year of visas being approved coming into Australia, and also obviously reforms were being placed and caps were mooted. The reversal of those has seen a surge in students going to Australia, and in the last 2 quarters we've seen an uptick of 7% year on year. When we say year on year, it's those quarters in play, of primary visas granted higher education. 91% visa approval, which is up 11%, which is very much noted. And long may that continue, because it's a very strong piece. Obviously there's the political landscape we need to be considering, and if there is a change of administration, some of those changes may well come into play. And if you look towards what has happened in Canada as a general sort of litmus test, then you can expect numbers to decrease coming in, which may well have a detrimental effect on not only the appeal and the sustainability of the higher education, or certainly some higher education institutions in Australia. because there is a heavy reliance on international students. As we've already mentioned, there's over 30% of students are international, and the housing is lopsided as well. So there's probably about, I think, it's about 85% PBSA is international rather than domestic in most Australian cities. When we look at some of the source countries and some of the key factors associated within that, China is up year on year, which is an interesting one, because there is overall there's a slight decline in China globally, but there has been where the Trump effect has taken place in America. There's been a lot of hedging bets and Chinese students wanting to go into Australia rather than America, and the other parts of that is sort of understanding that the overall decline in China is because of the 18-year-old population decline, and we will continue to see that, but the volumes are still huge. So we shouldn't underestimate that. You know, the visa approval rate is still very, very high, and we need to be certainly catering for that demographic. The Indian visas granted have dropped slightly, but it's only marginal, only 3%. But the visa approval rate has gone up by 26%, and the positive nature about the Indian students coming over, we see that as continuing and continue to grow, especially with the Australia-Indian Migration and Mobility Partnership that is set to give a lot of positivity and between the two countries. So we see that continuing within that. One of the interesting growth areas that we've seen recently is in Nepal. Whether this is short-lived, we're not sure, but it's basically based upon the growth of the financial stability of the company, the country. But having said that, there are some higher financial thresholds being levied, and we potentially will see some visa denials in the last couple of quarters. So that's one just to keep an eye on. The other country of note would be Vietnam. We've seen stricter visa policies and increased IELTS scores or English scores requirement coming into play. So they're reducing down the appeal and the opportunity. So the visa approval rate has dropped and will continue to drop, and we'll see declining numbers from Vietnam coming into Australia, or we expect to see declining numbers coming to Australia from Vietnam over the next few years. But you know, overall the future is bright, but there's obviously a lot of things that we need to be monitoring in terms of the political landscape for Australia, and also there's some of the cost of living. Cities like Melbourne and Sydney are getting very, very expensive, and there's a supply and demand imbalance as well, and so those costs are going up and up and up, which may well deter a number of students that are wanting to be looking to go to those cities. They may well choose another city or another state, maybe going to Adelaide, or they may well choose to go to the UK instead, and or even Canada and different places as well. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. We get sentiment continuously from our network of education agents, and we obviously are linked to our partners in the visa associations as well. So we'll continue to give the most up-to-date information that we can, so that we can manage expectation and also manage levels of decision making from the operators that we're representing as part of our platform as well. But so I'll leave it there for now, and I'm sure you're wanting to hear from Sartak, who will go through some of the traffic trends that we're seeing, and then conversion rates from different source countries into the destination countries and so that. And this is obviously about Australia, but I wanted to give you a bit of a flavour about the global bit, and I'll go back into that a little bit later on. But for now, I will hand you over to the wonderfully talented Sartak. Over to you.
Thanks, David, for that overview, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarthak, and over the next few slides, we are going to explore what the future holds for the Australian student housing market. This is based on our real-time insights via Amber Connect, our in-house data intelligence platform, and our ground presence in over 100 plus countries. Let's start by zooming out a little beyond Australia. This year, we've seen a perfect storm of macro accelerators, from migration surges to global policy shifts, all creating both urgency and opportunity. But hey, this isn't just about the policies, right? It's about the student behavior, the demand, and booking shifts. So I'm going to take you through a tour of student traffic trends, inquiry volumes, booking trends, because that amber traffic isn't just a vanity metric. It's an early intent, a window into how students across geographies they plan, procrastinate, and panic book. So let me share my screen and let's dig in. I hope the screen is visible now. All right. The first section I'm going to take you through is traffic trends. So trends have always been a key factor for us to interpret and visualize data. And one of the main things we're going to focus on today is the number of students migrating to Australia and see how our traffic compares to that. Here comes the traffic trend comparison across three countries, Australia, India, and China. And on the right, we've got the trend lines for the source countries, spacing across semester 2 2024 all the way up to semester 1 2025. And on the left, we've got some data on average platform visit, which we're going to visit later. Let's look at the trend lines first. So we can see two clear peaks which dominate the picture. For semester 1, the traffic surges in December all the way to January. And for semester 2, we see an intense spike around May and June. If we look at country-specific trend lines, Australia, it shows a consistent behavior with a spike in July for semester 2, and again, a spike in January for semester 1. This literally translates that Australia shows a short and sharp cycle, and the students they tend to browse and book closer to the intake dates. While from an Indian perspective, India's intent, it starts earlier. The traffic picks up in April and peaks around May and June for semester 2, while for semester 1, the traffic it picks up in November and it peaks around December and January, suggesting that the Indian students, they have a more research-heavy behavior. If we talk about China, we had a late start since we entered into the market later than we planned. Since our market entry in quarter 1, we've seen a consistent post-July growth curve. So let's now talk about the average platform visit. It literally translates into the number of times a student would visit our platform, weighing up their options before they've made any form of engagement. So if we look at the numbers, so for Australia, it's 5.6, for India, it's 7.9, and for China, it's 2.3, which clearly suggests that the Chinese students, they have a pretty much clear picture and they are pretty clear about their choices, and it only takes them 2 or 3 odd visits to finalize any options, while it takes 7 to 8 visits for an Indian student. And from an Australian perspective, it takes 5 to 6 visits to finalize an option. Let's now talk about funnel behavior and follow the user journey from discovery to booking. We've got 2 source countries here, Australia and India, with page views, inquiry, and booking and their respective graphs. So if you talk about Australia, the booking behavior is short and last minute, and the peak booking months would be Jan and Feb for semester 1, and July will be for semester 2. If we talk about India, the booking behavior, as we've already seen, it's long and funnel driven, while the peak booking months will be December to Jan for semester 1 and June and July for semester 2. So in order to capture the Indian market share, visibility needs to start in April and May for semester 2 and October and November for semester 1. While if you talk about it from an Australian perspective, we need to push inventory and messaging in early Jan and June for the respective intakes. So in a nutshell, the students, they aren't rushing, they are just being intentional. And our funnel strategy has to match that pacing. Now moving on to the inquiries at a city level. Let's check the city pulse, starting with Melbourne. We've seen a 15% dip in inquiries for semester 1 of 25 compared to the previous year. This could be due to high cost of living and visa processing delays. However, despite the drop in demand, conversions have increased and our market share has remained stable. This could be attributed to better university rankings in Melbourne this year and the availability of wide range of options for the students to choose from. Moving on to Sydney, we've seen a 20% rise in inquiries compared to last year, making it another strong year. The demand, it has remained consistent with a stable market share and increased conversions. This growth can be attributed to strong institutional branding, a well-established international community, and ample job opportunities for graduates. Additionally, university rankings have again played a key role in maintaining momentum. On the other hand, if you talk about Brisbane, we've had a fantastic year with a 46% increase in inquiries. This surge is likely due to its affordability, offering more budget-friendly housing options compared to other cities, along with strong university rankings in the region. Definitely, its student-friendly environment and lower cost of living have contributed to a growing market share and higher conversion rates. For Adelaide, there was a slight 9% dip in the inquiries this year. Despite this, the market share has remained stable. Um, the decline could possibly be attributed to fewer course offerings in local colleges that align with job market demands. Now that we've discussed traffic and inquiries, let's dive into booking trends, starting with a global perspective. We can see a 9% drop in international bookings going into the UK, while the other regions they've shown a positive trend. With this drop and improved university rankings, I believe it has led to a higher booking volume in Australia compared to the previous year. Bookings from India grew by 24%, China saw an 88% increase, and the Southeast Asian region showed strong interest with a 35% rise in the bookings. If you talk about USA and Canada, they have also shown a 42% increment in the number of bookings this year as compared to previous year. So Amber's footprint, it has expanded to meet this growing demand, and we have added a couple of new destination countries like Germany and Spain to our portfolio. This further strengthens our global presence and enhances our ability to serve students worldwide. Now let's zoom in a little bit and look at the Australian booking trends. Even with the visa cuts and global economic challenges, bookings went up. We saw 45% year-on-year growth in semester one bookings with better conversion rates and a stronger market share. This was made possible thanks to well-timed seasonal campaigns after the new year, a sharper focus on high-intent students, and a deeper engagement across regions like Southeast Asia and China, along with other diverse student markets. Now let's look at booking trends by source countries. Speaking about Australia, we saw a 4% increase in bookings for semester one, which tells us demand is holding steady. What's interesting is that most of these bookings must be coming from regional students moving to urban campuses. Their behavior is quite consistent. They're high intent and they tend to book late, usually after they've received their university offers. So the booking window is short, but the confidence to book is strong once they decide. Let's talk about India. For semester 1, 2025, bookings were up by 64.4% in December and January. And for January alone, we saw a 37% jump compared to last year. That kind of growth clearly signals resilient and growing demand. As we touched on earlier, Indian students follow a very research-heavy funnel complete journey. They browse, they inquire, and then they convert over 2 to 3 months. So if you want to win India, you need to show up early, and that's what we did. Visibility and fast response during April to May, and again in October, November has made all the difference. Now moving on to China. So we've seen a 20x increase in bookings, which is a huge leap and a clear sign that China is shaping up to be a strong demand channel going forward for us. What's working? Our Mandarin-speaking teams, localized onboardings, and targeted regional SEO strategies are really starting to pay off. We've also been steadily expanding our presence across key regions in China, and the momentum is building fast. Alongside China, we are also rapidly expanding across Southeast Asia, and despite the visa challenges, conversion rates they remain strong. Markets like Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia are really standing out, and these students, they're mobile first. They make decisions quickly, and they're very value sensitive. So they tend to book late, but when they do, they're clear-minded and committed, and they really respond well to follow-up. So these aren't fringe markets anymore, and they're becoming core engines of growth for us. So to wrap up the section, here's what the data has been telling us. First, the student behavior is evolving and not disappearing. Second, the cycle compression means that we need to engage faster and gain visibility right from the start. And finally, price value alignment is no longer option. It's the new loyalty. With that, I'll hand it over to David, who's going to walk us through what's driving the students' decisions today and the key factors that our partners need to consider to stay ahead.
Oh, thanks, Sarthak. Sorry, you've caught me having a slurp of my tea, so I just popped that down. Anyway, thank you very much for that. Some really good insights and in terms of overall performance. And what I'd like to do now, just to sort of round off the webinar, and hopefully you found it of value and enjoyable. I want to look at a little step back from some of the nitty-gritty pieces of the bookings and trends and stuff like that, and actually look at some of the factors affecting student choice. And there's obviously there's a lot of wider reaching external factors that will play a part, but we also took the proactive piece to be able to commission a study, and what we were looking at is to determine what part housing and where a student lives plays in their overall decision of where they're going to study. To be fair, we've actually got enough material to deliver a whole webinar on this subject, but I'll run through a snapshot and just give you a bit of a flavour of that, and just to sort of give a full understanding that this was conducted in the UK, international students in the UK, as well as some domestic students as well. And also with education agencies in source countries as well, across the board. We also have been working with Knight Frank and UCAS that they delivered various reports that we've taken some data to and aligned with that as well. So the sort of the traditional decision making for students of where to study has always been based on the usual quality of course, destination experience, employability, potentially whether they're able to stay in the country for a longer period of time, and all those sort of things, so, post-study work visas and things like that. The the most interesting thing for us was to showcase and understand that 82% of the students that we spoke to positioned where they live and the cost of living as higher or as equal importance to those usual factors of the quality course, destination experience, and employability. And this made us really think, and sort of where we are understanding a lot of students were coming to us, and we actually see it as part of our sales cycle, the fact that students are coming to us much earlier and asking about how much does it cost to live in that particular city, or that particular country, or that city within that country, and so on and so forth. And this is before they've made a decision on the university. So actually we've seen some areas where our sales cycle, our booking cycle, has elongated due to the fact that the students are coming much earlier because they are utilizing us and our services to be able to help them with their decision making. So we've taken that and we're looking at, well, we already are collaborating with our education agencies that we've got representing over 160 nationalities in all these source countries, and we've got over 5,000 partnerships with education agents that are helping students make those vital decisions on where to study. And it's not just which country do you go to, and then once they've decided on that country, they're choosing the university. We're finding a lot of students that are hedging their bets because they're not sure of the political situation, and those things may well change, and so on and so forth. So we're finding that the education agencies are helping students apply to more than one country and more than one university within those countries, and the cost of living really does come very high on that, and the availability within those cities makes a big difference as well. And we found that in the UK piece, but also if you look at the likes of Melbourne, where the cost of living is going up, the availability is low, there's a supply and demand imbalance in terms of PBSA there. And what potentially could be happening is that could be a determining factor for international students not to want to go to Melbourne. They may well choose Adelaide instead, or they may choose the UK or America. So I think these are considerations that we need to be or the student is making, and based on that, there's some obligations as owner operators and education institutions need to make to be able to help those students and to appeal to those students as well. So it's understanding those pieces. Another key area that we looked at, and we spoke to a number of institutions in the UK, and we asked about the student well-being and safeguarding issues, and they put that as a number one priority. They showcased 100% of institutions surveyed highlighted safeguarding student well-being as a priority, and that comes as no surprise. What came as a surprise was they only know where 10% of their students live, and that's on the back of them highlighting that where they lived, 90% of students cited where they lived as a bigger impact on their experience, and the universities agreed with that. So there's again, we're working with institutions to be able to help them understand where the students are living, and help them secure accommodation in those particular areas at certain price points, and so on and so forth. So there's just giving you a flavor of some of the outcomes and considerations from some of these studies, and to showcase that the work that we're doing is working for the students to be able to make sure that they have a very, very good experience and not putting themselves into jeopardy. And that whole decision-making process is a very interesting one, and we're getting more and more involved in that. And if we're representing various management companies and housing owner operators, then it helps us to be able to educate those students effectively on where they could be living. The other factors are obviously, we've sort of touched on some of those in the previous slides, where the choice of where to go in terms of countries and the mobility is huge for students. We've highlighted that some Chinese students will be monitoring the effects of the new administration in America, and the jury is out in terms of what could be happening in there. Nothing's changed thus far. However, that's a ticking time bomb, if you like. Canada, we've already mentioned. The cappings in there, it's still incredibly desirable to a place to be educated, but the visas are down to about 50% success rate because of the cappings associated, again playing into the hands of the UK, US and Australia. UK is stabilizing, but and then you sort of come on to Australia, and we can deep dive into Australia. There's probably a whole separate piece that we can go into Australia, but again, that whole aspect needs to be monitored continuously. One of the interesting things, with the Chinese higher education investment, we're looking at the likelihood of the migration reducing globally on that, as well as the age grouping of 18-year-olds dropping down as well. So we've mentioned that before. But there's all of these factors that we are keeping a close eye on. Again, we can go a lot more in depth, but I'm sort of I'm looking at my timer, and then there's various people sort of waving at me saying I need to wrap up. So I won't go on any more into this area, but one thing I would like to just to give you a flavor of is what we're doing as a business and what the future looks, how the future looks for Amber. And we've been really proud of what we've been achieving over the last few years. From inception in 2016, we've really grown hugely. And as you could probably see up on the screen, we've got over 5,000 partners worldwide, 2 million beds, 160 source countries, and our footprint is increasing into more and more source countries and destination countries as well. We've taken on Spain, Germany. We're now in France as well, and we've also got the North American piece is really strong for us as well. The new offices that we've got, and we're expanding into China, Singapore, Thailand, and the US. We've obviously got offices in London as well. So we're a true global company. Yes, we've got our roots in India, but even if you look at the statistics going into Australia, only of the international students that we've placed in Australia, only 25% of those are Indian. And we're making sure that we are representing all other countries and those source countries as well. So the way we've been able to do that is the advances in technology, not only from the front end booking journey, but also the back end connect that helps all of our partners, whether they're an education agency partner or the partners that are managing the housing. We're gaining more and more market share in each of those source countries, and part of that increase is the increased efficiencies and the conversion rates that we've got, and we're really understanding what the student needs and wants to be able to give them the trust to be able to book through us and the support. We're also developing various products on the institution side and the partnership side to support the university housing provisions. And we're able to showcase all of the plans and detailed plans to our strategy, to our supply partners. We do have new products, as I mentioned, and some of them are white labeled and into source networks and also institution partnerships. This is a key for our development growth at the moment, and we've seen some fantastic results when we put this into the most mature destination countries that we're working in at the moment. And we're expanding that into Australia as well. And so if you want to have some of those showcased and see what the value and benefit is for you guys, please let us know. We're more than happy to do so. One of the exciting things that we've been doing this year is we've gone into China. And obviously we're gaining great results actually in China. And our expansion has been very, very strong, and the initial results coming into Australia and the UK from China has been fantastic for us. So we're very, very pleased within that. We're really representing all of the major source countries as well as the emerging countries as well. So this is a factor that is a factor that is important to highlight to all of our partners, but we will be looking to map out what this looks like for all of our strategic partners in terms of what market share you could be looking to try to gain, and how can you appeal to the students from those particular source markets, and we can link in education agencies to be able to help establish what that can look like for you. So we are very, very pleased with all of the developments, and if you want to have a specific review about your portfolio, or if you're looking to invest in a certain country, or you're looking to move into a different country or a different state, we do various deep dives and due diligence reports and stuff like that. We do citywide reports, so we're able to provide those levels of service and a proper consultation service to you moving forward. I've got a green or a red light, I should be saying that I need to wrap up. So I won't bore you any longer. So apologies for prattling on in a classic English manner. My tea's gone cold as well, but there you go. But I guess I'm not sure whether we've got any time for questions, but I'm going to hand back to Shrey, and just to round things off in terms of any questions and stuff like that. But if we have got time, I'm available to answer anything as we move forward. Thanks very much.
Big thanks to David and Sarthak for hosting today. I know we are running short on time, but if you have any questions or want to chat further, please feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to connect. Also, a quick reminder from my team, please take a moment to fill out the polls that will pop up either on your screens or in the chat. It will really help us make these quarterly webinars better for you guys. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. And we hope to see you next time as well. Cheers. Bye bye.